September 12, 2023. Unity Technologies, the game engine powering half the games in the world, announced a new pricing model. They called it the Unity Runtime Fee. Developers called it something else, a retroactive tax on success. Within 24 hours, the developer community erupted in fury. Major studios threatened to abandon Unity entirely. Unity's stock price dropped 8%. The hashtags #Unity walkout trended worldwide within 1 week. The CEO stepped down. The company walked back key parts of the policy. But the damage was done. By the time Unity finished their clarifications, they had destroyed developer trust built over 18 years, wiped out $8 billion in market cap in 2 weeks, proven that platform companies can change the rules after you've invested everything. And here's the thing. This wasn't a technical failure. This wasn't a security breach. This wasn't even a bad product. This was a business decision that revealed the fundamental risk of building on someone else's platform. They changed the deal. After developers had already shipped their games, after millions of players had already installed them, after there was no going back. I'm Tony, and this is the Breakdown Economy, where we examine failures to reveal the patterns you need to see. Today, how Unity's pricing disaster became a $10 billion lesson in why platform dependency can be the most dangerous risk in modern business, and why you need to audit every vendor relationship you have right now. To understand why this was such a spectacular failure, you need to understand what Unity was to game developers. Founded in 2005, Unity democratized game development. Before Unity, making a 3D game required deep technical expertise, expensive proprietary engines, large teams, massive budgets. Unity changed that. Drag-and-drop interface, asset store, cross-platform deployment, and most importantly, free for small developers. The business model was brilliant. Free tier for developers making under $100K a year. Paid tiers, $40 to $150 a month for successful studios. Everyone gets the same powerful engine. This created a massive ecosystem. By 2023, 50% of all games were made with Unity. There were 3.5 billion devices running Unity games, 71% of top 1,000 mobile games built on Unity. Unity had a valuation of $20 billion at its peak. There were massive gaming hits built on Unity. I mined billion-dollar games, even with studios that started with one person in a basement. But here's what made Unity different from competitors like Unreal Engine. The promise. Unity's pitch to developers was simple. Build your game on our engine. If you succeed, we succeed. We grow when you grow. We're in this together. They cultivated a community, not just a customer base. Developers invested years learning Unity. Some studios built their entire technical stack around it. Entire careers were built on Unity expertise. And Unity reinforced this over and over. We're the developer-friendly platform. We're not like the big corporations. We're on your side. Until September 12, 2023, when they proved they weren't. All right, let's break down exactly what Unity announced, because the details are what made this catastrophic. September 12, 2023, Unity announces the Unity Runtime Fee. Starting January 1, 2024, developers would be charged 20 cents per install for games that exceed both $200,000 in revenue in the last 12 months and had 200,000 lifetime installs. Now, if you're not a developer, this might sound reasonable. Only charge successful games, right? Wrong. Let me share with you why this was immediately catastrophic. This fee applied to games already shipped. Think about that. You released your game 2 years ago. You built it on Unity because Unity's terms said, pay us the subscription fee and you're good. You priced your game based on those economics. You took out loans based on those projections. You hired staff based on that model. And now Unity says, actually, we're changing the deal for the games you already shipped that you can't unship. Imagine you buy a car. You drive it for 2 years. Then the dealership calls and says, by the way, we're now charging 50 cents per mile driven. We'll bill you for the last 2 years. That's not a business model. That's extortion. And it violates every principle of contract law and fair dealing. But it gets worse because Unity couldn't actually explain how they'd count installs. Developers immediately asked, does reinstalling the same game count as a new install? What about pirated copies? What about Game Pass or subscription services where one person installs multiple times? What about malicious actors repeatedly installing to bankrupt developers? Unity's response, we have a proprietary method. Translation, trust us. You're asking developers to pay you based on a metric you control, using a methodology you won't explain for a fee structure you just invented after they shipped their games. And here's where it gets truly absurd. A developer making a free game with in-game purchases could theoretically lose money on every install. Example, free-to-play mobile game, 200,001 in revenue, triggers threshold, having 1 million installs. Here's Unity fee, $20 x $1,000, $200,000. Developer profit after Unity fee, $1, imagine that, $1 profit on 200K revenue. This wasn't a pricing model. This was economic suicide for entire categories of games. Now let's talk about why Unity thought they could do this. Unity had been bleeding money for years, never profitable. The stock price is declining, and investors are demanding revenue growth. CEO John Riccitiello, former EA executive, came in with a clear mandate: monetize this platform. And he looked at the landscape and saw 3.5 billion devices with Unity runtime installed. Developers locked into the platform. Switching costs would be astronomical. Games already shipped can't pull them back. No meaningful competition for existing Unity games. In other words, they had leverage. Developers had invested years, shipped games, built businesses. They were trapped. So Unity tried to extract value from that trapped position. This is called platform holdup, and it's the nightmare scenario for anyone building on someone else's infrastructure. The developer's response was immediate and nuclear. Within 24 hours, Cult of the Lamb developers publicly announced they'd delete their game from stores on January 1st. Massive Monster and other studios pledged to remove Unity ads from their games. Among Us developers said they'd explore moving to different engines. Slay the Spire developers announced they'd never use Unity again. Thousands of developers started investigating Unreal, Godot, and other alternatives. The hashtag #NyardUnity walkout trended globally. Developer communities organized boycotts. Unity's own developer forums became revolt central. Unity's stock price dropped 8% in one day. Then it kept falling. Within 1 week, it was down 18% from the announcement. The market cap loss was over $3 billion. And that was just the beginning. September 17th, 5 days after the announcement, Unity tried to clarify their actions and announced new terms. The changes only applies to Unity Personal and Plus tiers, not Pro Enterprise. Only charges on initial install, not reinstalls. Developers can choose between revenue share or install fee. Too little, too late. Because the clarifications confirmed what developers suspected. 1. Unity could change terms retroactively. 2. Unity would negotiate differently with big customers. Tiered fairness. 3. Unity had no idea how to implement their own policy, hence the clarifications. 4. Unity didn't understand their own developer community. September 22nd, 10 days after announcement, John Riccitiello retired as CEO. October 2023, Unity announced layoffs, 265 employees. By January 2024, the stock price was down 40% from pre-announcement. The market cap loss was $8 billion. And developer trust was irreparably damaged. So why does Unity's disaster matter if you're not a game developer? Because Unity just demonstrated 3 patterns that apply to every platform relationship you have. When you build on someone else's platform, you're making a hostage trade. You get lower initial costs, faster time to market, access to infrastructure you couldn't build yourself, community and ecosystem, but you give up. Control over your core dependencies, protection from arbitrary price changes, the ability to leave without catastrophic costs, and negotiating power. Think about your own stack right now. AWS or Azure for hosting, Stripe for payments, Twilio for communications, Auth0 for authentication, MongoDB Atlas for databases? While I don't think they ever will, every one of those platforms could Unity you tomorrow. They could. Change pricing retroactively. Introduce usage-based fees that destroy your margins. Sunset features you depend on. Force you onto new plans with different terms. And you'd have 3 choices. 1. Pay the new fee. 2. Rebuild on a different platform. Months, years of work. 3. Shut down. Unity proved that developer-friendly platforms stay friendly until their investors demand revenue. Then the promises evaporate. We've seen this pattern. Twitter API pricing, 2023, destroyed third-party apps overnight. Reddit API changes, 2023, killed Apollo and other clients. Heroku free tier elimination, 2022, broke thousands of student projects. Google killing products, Reader Plus, etc. A constant pattern. AWS price increases. Regular occurrence, you just absorb it. Platform dependency is vendor lock-in. And vendor lock-in is pricing power. Unity just exercised that power clumsily and paid for it. But most platforms exercise it gradually, and you don't notice until you're trapped. Here's a question that should terrify every business leader. Can your vendors change the terms of your existing deployments? Most terms of service include language like, "We reserve the right to modify these terms at any time." Continued use constitutes acceptance of new terms. Think about what that means. You build a product. You ship it. You have customers. Then your platform provider says, "New terms, retroactive, accept or leave." Your options: accept, destroy your business economics. Reject, rebuild on new platform, time, cost, risk. Shut down, lose everything. Unity's runtime fee was the explicit version of this, but it happens implicitly all the time. Here are examples. Cloud pricing. AWS announces a 30% price increase on RDS. Your database costs just jumped. You can. Pay it, margins gone. Migrate, downtime plus engineering months. Shut down API rate limits. Twitter reduces API calls from 10,000 a month to 100 a month. Your integration breaks. You can. Pay for enterprise tier, 10-time cost increase. Rebuild without the API. Shut down your feature licensing changes. Software vendor moves from perpetual to subscription. You can. Pay annual fees forever versus one-time purchase. Stay on unsupported version. Security risk. Switch vendors. Retrain everyone. The pattern is, you build the dependency. They extract the value. Unity just tried to extract too much, too fast. But most vendors extract slowly enough that you accept it. Can you say O365? Let's talk about what Unity really lost in this disaster. Not the $8 billion in market cap, that was the symptom. What they lost was trust, and in platform businesses, trust is the entire moat. Platform businesses work because developers trust you won't pull the rug. Foundation, trust. You won't change the deal. You'll communicate transparently. We grow together. Layer 2, investment. Developers learn your platform. Build careers on your tech. Commit to your ecosystem. Layer 3, lock-in. Switching costs become astronomical. Community forms around platform. Platform becomes industry standard. Layer 4, network effects. More developers, more resources, more developers, self-reinforcing growth. But this only works if trust remains intact. Because the moment developers believe you'll change the deal, they stop investing. After Unity's announcement, Godot engine, free, open source, reported an 800% increase in donations. Unreal Engine signups spiked. New game projects started choosing alternatives. Existing Unity developers began long-term migration plans. Unity didn't just lose current customers, they lost future customers. The next generation of developers who now view Unity as the platform that betrayed developers. And here's the thing about trust bankruptcy. You can't rebuild it. You can change your pricing. You can fire your CEO. You can apologize, but you can't undo the proof that you're willing to change the deal retroactively. Yahoo never recovered from security breach disclosure delays. Equifax is still rebuilding developers' trust after its breach. Twitter never recovered third-party developer trust after API changes. Once you prove you'll optimize for extraction over partnership, developers build their next project somewhere else. That's the $10 billion trust tax Unity paid. Alright, so what do you actually do with this information? Because whether you're building software, choosing vendors, or managing platform risk, Unity just gave you a masterclass in what to watch for. First, audit your platform dependencies right now. Make a list of every platform you depend on. Cloud providers, payment processors, authentication services, APIs you integrate, SaaS tools in your stack. For each one, ask, could they Unity us? Change pricing retroactively. What's our switching cost? Time, money, risk to migrate. What's our negotiating power? Are we big enough to matter? What's their financial pressure? Unprofitable companies are risky. What's their track record? Have they done this before? Second, build abstraction layers for critical dependencies. Don't integrate directly with platform APIs throughout your code base. Build an abstraction layer. Yes, it's more work up front. But when your payment processor announces a 10x price increase, you can switch in days instead of months. Third, diversify critical infrastructure. Don't put everything on one platform. Multi-cloud strategy for critical workloads. Multiple payment processors integrated and tested. Open source alternatives evaluated and ready. Data portability built into your architecture from day one. I'm not saying avoid platforms. They're incredibly valuable and necessary. I'm saying assume they may eventually optimize for themselves, not for you. Plan for that day now, while you have leverage. For IT leaders, procurement teams, and anyone signing vendor contracts, add these questions to your vendor evaluation. Financial health. Are they profitable? If not, when will they need to monetize? Who are their investors? VC-backed companies have different pressures. What's their pricing history? Track record of stability versus changes. Contract terms. Can they change pricing retroactively? What's the termination process and timeline? Is your pricing locked or subject to change? Are there automatic renewal clauses with price increases? Platform risk. What happens if they get acquired? Terms might change. What's your exit plan? Document it now. Can you export your data in usable formats? Do they have API rate limits that could change? And here's the critical one. Have you ever changed terms retroactively for existing customers? If the answer is yes, or if they won't answer clearly, that's a red flag. Because past behavior predicts future behavior. And if you're operating a platform, pay attention to what Unity taught us. Your customers are not trapped. They feel trapped because switching costs are high. But high switching costs is not the same as impossible switching costs. If you violate trust badly enough, developers will. Absorb the switching costs, rebuild on competitors, build open source alternatives, and never come back. Unity thought they had leverage. They thought developers were locked in. What they actually had was accumulated trust that they burned in one announcement. Platform playbooks that doesn't end in revolt. 1. Grandfather existing customers. New pricing for new customers only. 2. Communicate changes 12 plus months in advance. Give time to adapt. 3. Offer migration assistance. Help customers adjust. 4. Keep promises. If you said free forever, honor it for existing users. 5. Optimize for long-term trust, not quarterly revenue targets. You can extract value from your platform position. You just can't extract it all at once without consequences. Let's talk about where Unity is today, 1 year later. New CEO installed, interim, then permanent. Runtime fee significantly revised and mostly abandoned. Multiple rounds of layoffs, 800 plus employees total. Stock price still down 40% from pre-announcement levels. Developer sentiment, permanently damaged. They survived, but when will they fully recover? Because every new developer choosing an engine now asks, which platform won't Unity me in 5 years? And the answer is increasingly, not Unity. Here's what Unity's $10 billion trust tax teaches us. In platform businesses, hell, in any business, your competitive advantage isn't your technology. It's not your features. It's not even your network effects. It's whether customers trust you won't screw them when you have the power to do so. And the moment you prove you will screw them, they start planning their exit. Maybe not today, maybe not this quarter. But they start looking. They start testing alternatives. They stop investing in your platform. And slowly, inevitably, they leave. Unity had 18 years of goodwill, hundreds of thousands of developers who chose their platform. They traded it for 1 quarter's revenue bump that never materialized. Don't be Unity, and don't build your business on a platform that might. This is the breakdown economy. I'm Tony. Next week, Silicon Valley Bank, how concentration risk collapsed the second largest bank failure in US history in 36 hours. Subscribe to see the next breakdown before it happens. And if you're building on any platform right now, go audit your dependencies, check your contracts, build your exit plan. Do it this week. I'll see you next Thursday.